All right, let's just dive right in because what we're unpacking today is honestly a game changer. We're taking Dale Carnegie's incredibly famous principles from How to Win Friends and Influence People and translating them into a modern, step-by-step masterclass. So whether you're stepping out onto a huge stage, trying to own a boardroom, or just trying to record an understandable speech video for your remote team, this blueprint is absolutely your ultimate guide to unforgettable communication.
And we're going to start off with a pretty massive revelation straight from the Carnegie Institute. 85%. Think about that for a second. Research actually confirmed that even in super technical fields, like we're talking engineering here, 85% of your financial success doesn't come from your technical know-how. It actually comes from human engineering. It's your personality, it's your leadership, and it's your ability to clearly express your ideas. You see, basic technical skills, those can just be bought at a standard salary. But the person who combines technical knowledge with the ability to really spark enthusiasm in a room, they're the ones fast-tracking it to the very top.
So, where does this all start? Let's talk about the origin of influence and the really high stakes of getting this right.
Picture it, New York, 1912. Dale Carnegie is running these educational courses for adults, and he quickly hits a massive wall. He realizes these professionals desperately needed training in the fine art of just getting along with others and thinking on their feet. But there was literally no practical textbook for it anywhere. So what did he do? He built one from scratch. He basically turned his classroom into a real-time laboratory of human relationships, testing and refining these principles that would eventually go on to revolutionize millions of lives.
And even John D. Rockefeller, a literal titan of industry, recognized this universal truth. He once pointed out that the ability to deal with people is a purchasable commodity, just like buying sugar or coffee at the store. And he said he would pay more for that ability than for literally anything else under the sun. Learning how to craft a truly understandable speech or a compelling video presentation is exactly how you meant that highly valued commodity for yourself.
Moving on to our next major piece, building that rock-solid foundation of connection. It all starts with knowing your audience.
The absolute most crucial step, way before you even open your mouth, is knowing exactly who is listening to you. Theodore Roosevelt was legendary for effortlessly captivating incredibly diverse guests. I mean, everyone from rugged cowboys to refined international diplomats. And his secret? It's so simple. Whenever he expected a visitor, he would stay up late the night before, obsessively researching the specific subjects he knew his guest was passionate about. If you want your speech to land, you can't just speak your mind. You have to speak the language of their interests.
But hey, connection isn't just about what you say, right? It's how you deliver it. A genuine, real smile is so powerful that telephone companies actually used to teach a program called Phone Power. Why would they do that? Because your smile literally alters the acoustics of your voice. The warmth actually comes through the wires. So if you are recording a video or speaking into a microphone, just remember that a smile carries immense data and it instantly makes your audience want to listen to you.
Now, building true connection means you have to actively adopt the audience's point of view. You have to give them your exclusive attention. Take Sigmund Freud, for example. People described his listening style as having mild eyes and extraordinarily concentrated attention. He completely validated what people said, even if they were struggling to articulate it properly. When you build this kind of deep empathy into your presentation, anticipating exactly what your audience is feeling and making them feel totally heard, you create a bond that is practically unshakable. Okay, but what about the tough crowds? Let's dive into disarming your audience and handling pure hostility. Look, we all hate being told we're wrong. When you directly challenge someone, it instantly raises their defensive barriers. And boom, a conversation turns into a battle. Instead, try saying something like, I may be wrong. I frequently am. Let's examine the facts together. That phrase right there, it is positive magic. It completely disarms them. Because at the end of the day, nobody is ever going to object to you admitting your own fallibility. It just opens the door. So if you face opposition during your talk, whatever you do, don't debate them. Walk through this sequence instead. First off, control your temper. Remember, you can always measure a person's true size by what makes them angry. Second, just listen. Listen first without resisting and let them vent. Third, actively look for areas where you actually agree. And finally, be radically honest about your own mistakes. It is wild how quickly you can melt their defensiveness when you simply refuse to build a higher wall of misunderstanding. Consider this incredible historical pressure cooker. John D. Rockefeller Jr. once had to face a violent, completely tempestuous miners' strike. These men literally wanted to hang him, but he didn't walk into that room barking demands or using stiff corporate speak. He addressed them graciously, he told them he was proud to be there, he called them friends, and he focused entirely on their common interests. That proverbial drop of honey caught way more flies than a gallon of gall ever could, and the strikers actually ended up going back to work without another word of argument.
All right, so you've got them listening. They are totally disarmed. Now comes the climax, delivering your message effectively.
To keep your newly receptive audience engaged, you've got to deploy the secret of Socrates. Don't ever begin by discussing where you differ. Instead, emphasize the things you agree on and ask questions that literally force them to say, yes, yes, right out of the gate. This builds incredible affirmative momentum. Psychology actually shows us that once a person says no, their pride demands they stay consistent with that no. But a yes sets their whole psychological process moving forward, like a billiard ball just rolling smoothly right towards your conclusion.
Keep these core principles in your back pocket, especially when you are drafting a live talk or maybe producing an understandable speech video. Begin in a friendly way, get that early yes. Let them do the talking by addressing their specific concerns, and structure your points so they actually feel like the final conclusion is their own brilliant discovery. Doing this ensures your presentation feels like a shared, collaborative journey rather than just some rigid, one-sided lecture. And merely stating the truth, it just isn't enough anymore. You absolutely must dramatize your ideas. The source material highlights this great story of an NCR salesman who was trying to sell modern cash registers to a really stubborn grocer. Instead of just lecturing the guy about how he was losing money, the salesman walked over and threw a handful of pennies right onto the floor. The startling, loud sound of those coins crashing stopped the grocer in his tracks, and it proved the point viscerally. You have to use a little showmanship. Now, what if you have to reject an idea or correct someone in your speech, or maybe even in a team meeting? Do what President McKinley did when he had to turn down a campaign speech written by a prominent supporter. He didn't just call it a bad draft. No way. He called it a splendid, magnificent speech, but then gently suggested it just wasn't quite suitable for that specific occasion. By lathering the man with sincere praise first, he totally saved his pride and redirected him without killing his enthusiasm. Which brings us to the ultimate payoff here, a shortcut to distinction. Carnegie firmly believed this. To develop real self-confidence, you literally have to go out and do the exact thing you fear. Take Patrick O'Hare, for instance. He was an Irish immigrant and a mechanic who was so completely terrified of selling that he had to pace back and forth past an office door 6 times before he could find the courage to finally open it. But by forcing himself to speak and by practicing constantly, he completely conquered that crippling fear and went on to build an unstoppable record of success. Because the ability to speak effectively, it is a literal shortcut to distinction in any field. Another incredible story we see highlights a food manufacturer who just couldn't express his ideas at board meetings. But once he learned to think on his feet, his trajectory skyrocketed. He was soon made president of his national association, and his talks were so incredibly engaging, they actually got put on the Associated Press wires. He gained more free publicity for his company than $250,000 in advertising could have ever bought.
As Professor William James of Harvard noted, most of us are honestly only half awake, leaving incredible powers completely dormant within us. Mastering the art of a clear, compelling, and engaging speech is the absolute key to unlocking those exact physical and mental resources that you habitually fail to use.
But here's the catch. Learning these rules isn't just about gaining knowledge so it can sit passively on a shelf in your brain. As Herbert Spencer famously said, the great aim of education is not knowledge, but action. This entire blueprint we've walked through today is an action plan. It's designed to help you form entirely new, highly effective habits. It requires persistence, it requires courage, and it requires daily application to truly transform how you connect with the world. So, as we wrap up this explainer, the crucial takeaway is this. As you prepare for your next big keynote, that critical board meeting, or your next on-camera presentation, I want to leave you with one final thought. What dormant powers and unused assets will you awaken today to connect, persuade, and ultimately succeed? Thank you so much for joining me, and go start taking action on these principles right now.